Hey guys, Happy New Year and welcome to the today's podcast. I've got a fantastic guest for you today, Dave Herring, and he's a creative, but most important, he's with Western Photography and Creative, and we're going to talk all about the creative process, cultural values, surviving as a freelancer, failing, and an all-around inspiring motivation discussion. So, Dave, welcome.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, so we connected through Podmatch and I love talking with creatives. I'm a creative myself and I love having guests such as yourself on the show. So tell us about your story, your experience, and we'll dive right into the conversation afterwards.
Yeah, that title of creative, I think, is like probably one of the most important things I've learned about myself over the last 20 years or so. It's real easy to pigeonhole yourself into a creative field, like I'm a photographer, I'm a musician, or I'm a writer. But when you take on the title of just being a creative, you start to kind of embrace the creating something out of nothing that is within, I think, most people. And so for me, I have had creativity manifest in many ways throughout my career. Started off in music, it eventually led over to photography. Today it's photography, videography, and also writing. And there's so many things that go into being a creative. And I appreciate whenever people use that word the way you are, because it really does define what's inside the person and not so much how it manifests.
Yeah. I love that because like I said, like my background is in medicine, but I never tell people I'm a physician. I always tell people I'm a creator, and it always sparks a lot of questions. And it's really like it's either like how you put things together, and it could be words, pictures, sounds, movies, and just basically create something, right? And with you've got extensive experience in this industry, the freelance, so kind of share how you've navigated success, failure, and how these experiences have shaped your approach to your work.
Yeah, I think what most people like that don't do freelance work, a lot of people just kind of believe like freelancing looks like, hey, I'm good at this thing. Let me go find people that want to buy this thing off me, or this is my time. Freelance, from my experience, and it has come through both success and failure, is finding all of the things that can, at the end of the day, let you own your time. I think that's like for me what draws me so much to freelance work is it lets me be in control of my time. When we think about the way we're compensated in life, we get money, but money's fluid. Money's going to come into my life, money's going to leave my life, but time is like a one time thing. I get this minute, I get this moment, it'll never return to me. And so my passion for freelance comes from wanting to own my time. And when you want to own your time, you find every way to make that happen. And so, right now, like photography has been a big part of my freelance career. But it's not. If I had all my business wrapped up in say one client or even one style of photography, and then the market changes, then I've lost everything. So I always tell people that like diversity in revenue, diversity in services is how you stay successful as a freelance artist or a creative, and not so much try to be pigeonholed into this one thing as a creative. That is like critical for success.
Yeah, I love that. And because everybody tells you to niche down, but then well, what happens if that niche changes overnight? You got AI or, a competitor or something, if COVID, it's crazy just to like, and then I'm always thinking like expansion, like distribution and like the other
Yeah.
things and
I think the market, it used to be about like becoming a pro at one small thing. And like then and when people want that one thing, they're going to come to you. And I feel like here's a good example from like probably 2017 through like the lockdown in 2020. Those 3 years were probably the height of like adventure photography, where people would companies were hiring all sorts of photographers to go into the mountains and take pictures of their boots or take pictures of their water bottle on a hike or something. And like during that like 3 year window, if you were really good at that, you could have a really good living. Well, today, nobody wants that anymore. Like, no brands are looking for adventure photography anymore. And so, the people that, like, I have friends that built their entire portfolio around adventure photography and travel and that kind of thing. Well, today, they're like struggling to find work because the market has shifted. people have been exhausted by that. So that's where like it is important to, I believe, like be your best. Like you don't have to be the best, just be the best version of you can be at the things that you create. But if you get so market specific, the market is going to shift. That is an inevitable thing. Nothing lasts. Everything changes. And so when that thing inevitably changes, you don't want to be left, without any work and any clients or anything like that. So you have to learn to kind of shift with the market or stay ahead of it.
Oh, I love that. Staying ahead of it. Yeah, I'm always, that's why I love talking to individuals such as yourself, getting the pulse on things and always thinking, getting ahead of things. I love that. Just, prevention and being
Mhm.
proactive. You're the host and founder of Creative Night, and it's a unique platform for artists across various disciplines. And I'm sure, diversity. What
Oh,
inspired you
yeah.
to start it, and how's it impacted the creative community?
Yeah. So, like in the Bay Area, right, we've got about 8 million people in the Bay. I mean, it's a big part of America. It's a massive place between San Francisco, San Jose, the East Bay, and then over even down towards like the Santa Cruz coast and everything. And so we've got all these people here. And inside of all these communities, you have various artists, and they're all kind of what I noticed was that a lot of artists, a lot of creators were really like gravitating toward their own. So for instance, photographers are in photography groups with other photographers, and they meet up in San Francisco to go do a photo walk with other photographers. And that's awesome. Like community is like the greatest thing creatives can achieve. We need community to create. Nobody does well in isolation. And so what I started to notice though is that there are all these little pockets of people all over the place, but nobody was actually taking any like effort or energy to like collaborate across those genre lines. And so, for instance, let's say there's a guy who's a musician. He's got an album coming out. Well, he might need a photo shoot for that album. He might need graphics for his album art. He might need PR and someone who's a good writer to write up, a press release. Well, what I was hoping to do was get creators together from different platforms, different genres, and start letting people connect with one another. And so we founded this thing called Creator Night to get creators together. And we launched it kind of a soft launch in the spring of 2023. And we had about 35 creators come to our like nonprofit space. We have a big warehouse, and we only met in the lobby because there weren't enough people. But by the next one, we're doing them quarterly. We skipped the summer, and by the fall, when we launched our first official one in the fall, it was slammed. It was wall to wall with people from every imaginable creative background. We even had culinary artists. We had poets. We had spoken word artists. We had musicians, photographers, and it was like this beautiful time of networking and connecting. And then like I host the event by selecting a panel of artists that represent diversity both in people and also in creative outlets. And I ask them 5 questions or so in like an interview style in front of everyone in the room. And we have this like discussion and questions and answers, and we feature their art. So I mean, it was a really powerful event. We did another one in December that was also like just incredible. And it's very life-giving for creatives to spend time together and be inspired by one another and think. I don't want to, I'm in the Bay Area, so I don't want to say think differently like Apple, but when I spend time with a painter, I think differently. I don't think like a photographer all the time. They help me maybe think about composition a little differently, and I think that's a good thing.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I love that. And then especially Bay Area, Silicon Valley is just but
Yeah.
creatives, and it's really it changed the world. Kind of the next question is you emphasize the importance of cultural values and community, and you believe these elements are crucial and how they can incorporate these elements in their creative practices.
Yeah, like whenever we think about like the creative marketplace, it feels competitive, right? Let's just talk like from the surface level. Let's say that there's a business that needs to book a photographer. Well, I want to win. I want to be the photographer they book. That there is a reality to that. I mean, it is in many ways, commercial work especially, it's a zero-sum game. And so, if they book another person, they don't book me. However, creativity by nature is not competitive. It just isn't. Like, even think about how we, in like maybe whoever's listening to this, how we consume media. Nobody has just one band that they listen to, one musician, and they don't listen to anybody else. I mean, who does that? Like, or watches one TV show and nothing else. Or maybe we can get even more specific and says like they watch one movie, they never watch another movie. It's that one movie on repeat once a week. Like, that's not how we create. That's not how we consume anything from the creative world. We are very multifaceted. We like music. We like genres of music with multiple artists, multiple songs. We have our favorite TV shows and our favorite movies, our favorite authors, games, whatever it is. And when you start to think about yourself as a creative and how in reality, everybody is a consumer of a vast range of creativity, you really start to see that like there's way more value in collaboration than there is over competition. And that is just one example of like a cultural value that's important to me is collaboration over competition. We really push that with Creator Night as well. Like creativity, like it's like whenever the water rises and art gets valued. So let's go back hundreds of years ago to the Renaissance. During the Renaissance, you had great art changing the world. And when people began to love that art, the waters rose and it rose all of the artists together, which is why you can go to the Uffizi Art Museum in Florence and see incredible pieces from dozens of artists, or you can go to different museums all over the world and you can see from that time period how many sustained creations we have from that period, and even the great composers that came after that period. I mean, so when the waters rise in our culture, you get a deeper appreciation for all artists and all arts. And so I believe that positive cultural values for creatives raise the water. So collaboration over competition. I'm a big believer in generosity as a cultural value for creators. Like, not everything needs to be monetized. And the more we can help and inspire others or give our art away and when it's appropriate to, I think it just makes our culture better. And I have many stories where I did something that I felt moved to do out of a generosity cultural value that I got major bookings from that I did not expect or anticipate, nor did I do it for that reason. But some of my biggest clients and biggest contracts came because of something that was done from a positive cultural value and not for the sake of a paycheck.
Yeah, I love that. Because what I love is like, you put two creatives together, doesn't equal two. It's like 4 or 8. It becomes exponential. And it's basically, it's a different concept of value. It's not a monetary value. It's more just like this social perceived value, which can be more than the monetary.
Yeah, definitely.
Kind of picking back off that idea, you have a diverse range of outputs, photography, writing. How do you balance these different mediums, and how do you know when to use what, and what advice do you give to the creatives listening to this show?
I think it's very contextual to the individual. For me, I'm a lot of things, right? I'm a creative. I'm also a father. I'm a husband. I've got responsibilities in life and all these things. And so I have to kind of pick and choose what is like sustainable for me in a season, and B, what is also like giving me life. And I'll start by sharing this. Like, there's this concept of like, when we think of like, we as people, we need rest, right? And I'm not talking like just sleep. Like, rest restores our soul. It restores our being. And that's why, we currently work 5 days and we have 2 days off, right? We need to rest. But the concept of rest, I think, is a little broken in our society. We tend to think of rest as like being something like, I'm going to completely check out. I'm going to binge watch a show, and I'm not going to do anything. I'm spending the whole day on the couch. I'm going to call that rest. For me, rest looks like, and this is something I've learned over the years, rest looks like doing things that fulfill me, doing things that recharge me. And sometimes that looks like a 5 a.m. sunrise hike. It doesn't feel restful, but that recharges my soul. So where I was going with all that is that I pick and choose sometimes my creative outlet by which one is most restful for me. So for instance, like I would say photography is pretty much a constant because it's part of my career,
Wow.
in videography these days as well. But I am a musician. I've got a music project always going on with some friends, or like I'll go through a season where a buddy of mine will get inspired to work on a project and we'll just collaborate because he's on the East Coast and I'm on the West Coast. And so he'll fly out a few times, we'll make some music and write something, record something, and we never market it, we never put it out there, but we make it for us, right? And so and there are those seasons where music is restful for me, and I need that. And so I'll elevate that. And there are times like in late 2018 into 2019, I was working on a book. I was writing about a personal journey that I went through, kind of discovering the healing nature of beauty in places that are untouched by man, like some of our national parks. And in doing that, I was spending 5:30 a.m. to 8:30 a.m., 3 hours a day, about 4 days a week at a coffee shop right when they first opened writing. And
Oh,
that was restful for me in that season.
oh,
That was very life-giving for me. And even though I was getting up early, but that it was like that 3 hour block of time, 4 days a week or so was very life-giving for me.
yeah.
So that's kind of how I pick and choose what I've got my hands on, or my head or my heart on. It's like, what is giving me life right now? Like what is restoring my soul? What is helping me rest?
Yeah. Interesting. Because, like you said, it's kind of predefined, like you have a 2-day weekend or you have like a week-long vacation. And, sometimes people just need like a walk in nature, 30 minutes, and that's rest. For some, it's like maybe a week off, or for some,
Mhm.
it's like doing something creative such as yourself. So, kind of ended off because you've got this creative, and then you've had a really interesting background. And how has your background contributed to your creative process and life philosophy?
Yeah, I mean, like when we say background, we often think of like what is our story or what is our experiences. Life is kind of two part. It's nurture and nature. We have, or maybe we can say it like this: like a lot of our background is hands we were dealt, and then there's also decisions that we made that
Yeah.
guide that we do and we control in some ways our own destiny. So I think when I think about my background, the hands that I was dealt, I played as best I could, did not win them all, but I think at the end of the day, like our backgrounds, whether we have a traumatic story or we have a very like easy story, and I don't think anyone has an easy story, but let's just be on two opposite ends of the spectrum here. I think at the end of the day, everybody needs to try to make the most out of their life and their time. And so I have had a lot of privileges in my life that others don't get. I recognize that as an American citizen compared to people maybe in other nations, or as a man, as a male. Like I recognize I've had privileges as a white male. I recognize I've had privileges. Like I've had a lot of privileges, but I've also had a lot of adversity.
Mhm.
I've had a lot of things that did not go my way, or things that like the cards were against me. But I try not to let anything be an excuse on why I'm not in a certain place.
Mhm.
As far as my own creative life and everything, this is one of my cultural values. I try to live by this, is that I want to maximize me. I don't have to be the best, but I want to be my best.
Mhm.
Like I have limitations. My brain is going to be limited. My physical, I can't go lift 500 pounds. Like I have physical limitations. I got mental limitations, and I have like time limitations, monetary limitations.
Mhm.
But I can survey who I am, what I have at my disposal, what I'm physically able to do, mentally able to do, spiritually able to do, whatever. And I can assess, what does it look like to be my best?
Mhm.
Like when I am at 100%, what does that look like? And with my backgrounds, and my background, like with my family, or my background in my all the things that I have failed at, all the things that I've succeeded at, whatever we want to say there, my goal is always, how can I be my best version of me,
Yeah.
and then letting myself live that out. And then I do this process where like I kind of self-evaluate, and I use these four principles here, these four like categories, I'll call them. And this is not a thing I created, by the way. This is very common. But what went right, what went wrong, what was confusing, and what was missing.
Mhm.
And I use that a lot in every job that I have. I even use it to take inventory of where I am personally, what's going right, what's going wrong, what's confusing, and what's missing. And if you really break those down, you see that one of them is positive and three are kind of negative. But the positive ones, like I want to affirm those things. Like what's going right now for me personally? What's going right with that job I just did? My last creator night, what went right? What went wrong? What was confusing? What was missing? And the goal is that in all these areas, you take what was right, you affirm it, you fix what was wrong, you clarify what was confusing, and you add what was missing.
Uh,
And I feel like that no matter what our experiences are, if we begin to take inventory of those experiences and we begin to assess them, we can start to kind of even shape the future outcomes. And the other thing that could happen is that we don't take inventory, we don't assess those things, and then we get into like almost like a data loop where we start to repeat the same ones and zeros over and over and over again, and then we're never going to be our best version of ourselves. So I think that like all the experiences that I've had in life, career, success, failures, all of these things, I think that ultimately they have affected my creative life. They've affected my career because I will proactively take inventory of them and assess them and then make whatever changes need to be made for tomorrow.
yeah. Oh man, that's very powerful and very inspirational. I love that. It's kind of like you're always finding ways to basically take stock in yourself and basically put out the value that you that you can. How can people find out more about you? You're very intriguing, and I'm sure people want to
Oh,
find
thank
out more
you.
about you.
I years ago secured the coolest domain ever for a guy named Dave. I was able to buy Dave.online. Do you remember whenever years ago everything was .com and then all of a sudden they released like 100 other dots?
Yeah.
Well, things were super cheap back then. So I got Dave.online for like 30 bucks and I've had it for many years. So anyone listening can just type on their browser Dave.online and you will find my personal website that links to things from my YouTube channel to
Wow.
my photography galleries to Instagram, social media, music, whatever you want. It's all linked to from Dave.online.
Oh, cool. Awesome. I definitely want to check that out. And with and all for all the audience out there, let's thank Dave for this really awesome conversation. Be sure to give him a follow on his socials and check out his work. And with that, thanks so much for coming onto the podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was awesome.